When a new coaster is announced, you expect it to open within a year. This is usually the case with most roller coasters. However, every once in a while, you get that coaster announcement, but then problems cause it to get delayed by years. But which coaster got delayed the longest to open? This is the top 10 coasters that took forever to open. Before we get started, let's lay out a few ground rules. First, we aren't counting coasters that purposely took a few years to open. There is a big difference between rides that need a few years to be perfected and those that kept getting pushed back from problems. Second, we're ranking this based off the length of when they announced it to when it officially opened. Third, we are counting relocated coasters that fell under the same fate but only at the location it suffered from. Fourth, we aren't counting coasters that are constantly delayed and still under construction unless they are extremely close to opening. And finally, if some of the information is wrong or you think a coaster should be on here, please let me know. The process for ranking this involves a long, painstakingly slow series of manually finding a coaster timeline, rinse and repeat. With those out of the way, let's get started. Number 10. Sandy's Blasting Bronco at Nickelodeon Universe. An intimate vertical LSM coaster from 2020. Announced in 2017, delayed by 3 years. Themed to the squirrel from SpongeBob, this prototype intimate launch coaster is very intense for its compact size. Unfortunately, this coaster is extremely unreliable. Initially, this coaster was announced alongside with Nickelodeon Universe when 555 Group acquired the American Dream Mall. This mall, however, ran through 20 years of delays due to financial reasons. And when the mall got delayed again, so were the coasters of the mall. The mall and Nickelodeon Universe wouldn't even open until the end of 2019. However, Sandy's wouldn't even open with the park. This is because the park was having problems with its turntable malfunctioning. This turntable is meant for riders to experience the layout both forwards and backwards, but instead caused them so many issues. Not to mention that Sandy's was one of the many coasters to suffer from COVID delays. Sandy's wouldn't even open until American Dream Mall was allowed to open by the state under strict regulations. While they did get it to open, and it's a great ride, Sandy's continued to suffer from long periods of downtime. Number 9. All-American Triple Loop at Indiana Beach. A Schwarzkopf Triple Looper from 1984, relocated in 2024. Announced in 2020, delayed by 4 years. This Schwarzkopf Looper actually has a long history of relocations. However, in 2019, during its run in Mexico, the ride unfortunately derailed and killed 2 passengers. This event not only shut down the park the coaster was in, but also left the coaster's fate into question. But when the coaster was being dismantled, people noticed how careful they were doing it, suggesting that it could get relocated. Then in 2020, Indiana Beach's new owner Gene Staples purchased both Schwarzkopf coasters from La Feria for 2 of their parks. The Triple Looper specifically went to Indiana Beach. However, due to the severe number of issues it endured in Mexico, the coaster was heavily damaged. Indiana Beach had to perform a major restoration to Triple Loop. However, performing this restoration was trickier because parts were harder to come by. This is due to Schwarzkopf being out of business and the supply chain issues going on at the time. The majority of the parts, which included new trains, came from the now defunct Mindbender in Canada. With the ride now testing, Triple Loop should be able to open within the next few months, and the ride should be as intense as always. Number 8. Aquaman Power Wave at Six Flags Over Texas. A mock power splash from 2023. Announced in 2019, delayed by 4 years. This mock power splash was announced as part of a series of announcements made by Six Flags in the 2010s. This was slated to be the first power splash in America. A power splash is a shuttle launch version of a water coaster with a signature splashdown. Originally meant for the 2020 season, Aquaman, along with multiple other rides, were delayed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. To prevent sounding like a broken record, 8 of the coasters on this list were delayed as a result of the pandemic. Most of them got delayed to either 2021 or 2022, but Aquaman didn't open in those years. This is because during the delay, they wanted to add a turntable mid-construction. One thing to note is that the power splashes were designed with a turntable in the station to enable 2 train operations. For some reason, when Aquaman was announced, the ride lacked a turntable. This was added much later for higher capacity, but resulted in further delays until 2023. But the ride did open, and while it did suffer from small spurts of downtime, it became popular to cool down in the Texas heat. Number 7. Totis at Park Asterix. An intimate LSM launch coaster from 2023. Announced in 2018, delayed by 5 years. In 2018, Intamin announced 2 extreme coasters for CDA parks at IAAPA for the 2021 season. These were Conda for Wallaby Belgium, an Intamin mega coaster, and Totis at Park Asterix, an Intamin high-speed switch track coaster. The latter is a type of coaster where you traverse a section of track then launch only to roll back. Meanwhile, the track switches to head into a different direction, so when you roll back, you head into a different section of track into a spike. Then you head back down, then launch full speed to complete the tallest element. These two coasters were scheduled to open for the 2021 season. This is why Conda didn't qualify for this list, because the mega coaster was purposely pushed back until 2021. But whereas Conda opened on time, Totis got held back by a couple more years. This has to do with the location that Park Asterix placed Totis, which is way back in the woods. The issue came when they had trouble securing the necessary permits to remove the trees in that area, delaying it by over a year. And remember that the construction had to pass 2020, which meant construction halted for another year. Luckily, they did get it to open for the 2023 season, and fortunately, the coaster was received well for its wide variety of forces. With its ejector airtime, full hang time, and the powerful backwards section, Totis became the standout coaster of Park Asterix. Number 6. Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind at Epcot. A unique Vekoma family spinning coaster from 2022. Announced in 2017, delayed by 5 years. In 2017, during Disney's annual D23 event, they announced 2 Vekomas for Disney World that both happened to be on this list. The first was Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind at Epcot. This is a unique Vekoma spinning dark ride themed to the Marvel team of the same name. Now this spinner is different in that it's designed for riders to look at a specific view rather than be free spinning. And of course, the ride is well themed and comes with a story. Initially, this coaster was supposed to open in 2021. This is likely because Disney and Vekoma needed time to perfect the ride system. However, the coaster got delayed another year to 2022. One reason could be due to the spinning trains could have ran into issues, but not too sure about that. The only thing confirmed with the delay was that it ran into 2020 problems, which meant construction halted for a year. The good news is that they did get Guardians to open, and it's a well-perfected coaster. The elements are used to craft an immersive story, and some consider it the best coaster at the Walt Disney World Resort. And it's mighty impressive that they did this in an era where their focus on gay media loses them billions of dollars. Number 5. Primordial at Lagoon, an art engineering / in-house shooting dark ride from 2023. Announced in 2018, delayed by 5 years. In 2018, plans leaked from Lagoon to build a shooting dark ride similar to Wonder Mountain's Guardian in Canada. Soon after, Lagoon acknowledged their new project that they call Primordial. Lagoon didn't exactly reveal much beyond the name and the ride system. They did hint that this mysterious coaster would open in 2020. However, Primordial remained a mystery for several years, even after 2020. Other than COVID, the delays and status were very unknown. But let's be for real, the concept was bound to run into problems. First of all, even though art engineering had some involvement, this is mainly an in-house project by Lagoon themselves. And if one thing is guaranteed, it's that DIY projects result in more trial and error. The other thing is that shooting dark rides, especially on a roller coaster system, gets really complex. Because dark rides by nature involve so many technical systems, there is several room for error. And it didn't help that Primordial featured new trains, good theming, and a surprise section of track that I won't spoil here. The ride was so mysterious that when Lagoon opened it near the end of 2023, it just sort of opened without any prior announcement. The good news is that Primordial was received as well as a modern-day Universal coaster. Primordial was described as a highly themed shooter with impressive sets. Its theming resembled more in line with what's at Disney. Speaking of Disney, number 4, Tron Light Cycle Run at the Magic Kingdom, a Vekoma motorbike coaster from 2003. Announced in 2017, delayed by 6 years. Announced alongside Guardians, this is a highly themed Vekoma motorbike coaster. Themed to the Tron movies, the story is based on a scene where the blue team battles against the orange team, and the ride is highly futuristic. And just like Guardians, Tron was also scheduled for 2021. I understand for Guardians since that was a more unique ride, but Tron never made sense to me. The reason is because Tron is actually a clone of an identical ride at Shanghai Disneyland that opened a year prior. Not to mention that Vekoma has been building motorbike coasters since 2004, so it always felt a bit weird that they needed that much time. The rumor was that Disney wasn't allowed to build clones from Asia for the first 5 years the one in Asia has been open for. But of course, Tron dropped the ball for another 2 years. First was of course 2020, so yeah. The other problem is actually Cosmic Rewind. Disney was prioritizing Guardians first, which left Tron in the back burner, and since they didn't want both Vekomas to open in the same year, this left Tron in a state of limbo for another year. But once they finished Guardians, Disney quickly finished Tron for the 2023 season. The ride is pure fun with sweeping turns. While the ride is very good, it did feel short and there was a bunch of slow mid-course brake runs to maximize capacity. It also features double-sided lockers and a very virtual queue. But I think Disney fumbled the bag opening the ride in a year where most Disney movies lost anywhere from $50 to $200 million for being gay. Number 3. Flying Turns at Knoebels, an in-house wooden bobsled from 2013, announced in 2005, delayed by 8 years. This is probably the most infamous example of a ride being constantly delayed. In the early 1930s, John Norman Bartlett built the wooden bobsleds. These so-called flying turns were really popular at the time. However, due to high maintenance, wooden bobsleds went extinct by the 1970s. While steel bobsleds emerged in the 80s, a wooden bobsled wouldn't be attempted until 2005. Knoebels, a park which appreciates history, removed the Vekoma Looper to make way for this bobsled. Named Flying Turns, this would pay homage to the work of Bartlett. However, Flying Turns ran into more issues than refugees crossing the Darien Gap. For one, building a wooden bobsled is very complicated, considering they were building it by hand. But due to stricter safety regulations, the biggest issue was designing a train that could safely navigate the course. The original trains ran faster than designed. The second train required the track to be redesigned and modified, but during testing, they jackknifed. And since Knoebels was making this themselves, they had to perform several rounds of trial and error. Coasters delayed this long would have been cancelled by now, but Knoebels had so much perseverance that they managed to get it to open by the end of 2013. While the ride experience is meh by today's standards, Flying Turns is cherished for its rich history and the fact they brought an extinct ride back to life. While the ride has faced recently long closures from retracking and staffing, Flying Turns continue to be praised for its history. Number 2. Mission Ferrari at Ferrari World Abu Dhabi, a dynamic attractions SFX coaster from 2023. Announced in 2014, delayed by 9 years. In 2014, Dynamic Attractions revealed the SFX coaster, a highly immersive thrill coaster that combined dark ride and roller coaster. Later that year, it was announced that the first SFX would go to Ferrari World in Abu Dhabi, an hour south of Dubai. Ferrari World, known for the previously fast roller coaster Formula Rossa, would open Mission Ferrari in conjunction with both Flying Aces and TurboTrack, a pair of Intamins. The theme of Mission Ferrari is that you're an agent on a secret mission to deliver Ferraris to a hidden factory in Italy. But just like Flying Turns, Mission Ferrari is infamous for problems resulting in a near decade-long delay. The issues come from the complex nature of the SFX coasters. These come from the series of complex spoiler-filled elements. Speaking of which, if you wish not to hear the spoilers for this ride, skip to the time shown on your screen. These elements include the following: 5 LSM launches, 2 inversions, which are a corkscrew and a backwards vertical loop, a bunch of show scenes with screens and physical sets, a seesaw tilt track, and a sideways sliding track. The latter 2 elements were completely brand new, but because of the new and complex elements, Dynamic Attractions ran into issues with the research and development of the SFX coaster. Part of the issue was that the unique spoilers had a bunch of technical issues that took forever to resolve. It also didn't help that COVID delays caused a shortage of parts needed for Mission Ferrari to fix all the issues. To make matters worse, Dynamic Attractions was developing another SFX coaster and a dual-powered prototype for Genting Skyworld in Malaysia. The former is said to be even more ambitious than Mission Ferrari. And surprise surprise, these 2 coasters ran into just as many problems as Mission Ferrari. These delays exceeded the cost for Dynamic Attractions. See, Ferrari World paid Dynamic a lump sum of $18.2 million, which is actually reasonable for a dark ride like this considering that there are dark rides that cost well over $100 million. However, the delays blew the cost to around $28.3 million, causing Dynamic Attractions to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in March 2022. Luckily, Dynamic was able to complete Mission Ferrari shortly before bankruptcy. Thus, Ferrari World opened the ride on January 12th, 2023. While not too many people have ridden it, those who have said it's a one-of-a-kind ride that you must try for yourself, with its theatrics making it for a memorable experience. Unfortunately, Mission Ferrari is still very unreliable today. My evidence for this is the fact it's constantly listed as closed on their website. Oh, and those 2 Malaysian dynamic coasters, yeah, they're still not open yet, so that's why they're not on this list. Before we get to number 1, I'd like to give an honorable mention to Sick at Flamingo Land, the Intamin 10 inversion coaster from 2022. Announced in 2012, 2019, delayed by 10 or 3 years? Okay, cutting to the chase, the reason Sick is just a mention is because its history makes me not sure if we'd be breaking our own rules. See, before Sick came to Flamingo Land, it came from a couple parks before landing in the UK, where it took another 3 years before it actually opened. So it's actually more in line with All-American Triple Loop's timeline. But the difference is that whereas Triple Loop ran with guests in his former homes, Sick never even finished construction at its prior locations. What happened was that Hopi Hari in Brazil was planning to build this 10 inversion coaster in 2012. However, because Hopi Hari was broke, they didn't have any money to start vertical construction, so they had to sell Sick to Movie Animation Park in Malaysia, except that park was also broke and history repeated itself, so they had to sell it to Flamingo Land. That's how you get numbers like this. On to the actual number 1. Number 1. Ravine Flyer 2 at Waldameer, a gravity group winning coaster from 2008. Announced in 1997, delayed by 11 years. That's right, Ravine Flyer 2 got delayed for 11 f***ing years. How the hell did this happen? Well, it's important to note that the 2 in Ravine Flyer 2 signifies that this is the second version. The original Ravine Flyer ran from 1922 to 1938. It was notable for 2 airtime hills that crossed over a road. However, someone died on the original, so they had to shut it down in 1938. Flash forward to 1997, Waldameer is looking to bring back Ravine Flyer. This new Ravine Flyer would have been a more dynamic wooden coaster with more extreme elements. They submitted plans that same year for approval. However, it would take them a decade to actually get that woody open. This is because of an ongoing lawsuit from nearby neighbors, claiming that the coaster would be built within a bluff recession hazard area, which apparently violates Pennsylvania laws. Hey, look at that! I found a coaster for a video titled Why Your Neighbors Hate You. Additionally, the government planned to build a greenway and visitor center near the ride. Subsequently, the neighbors accused Waldameer for having political connections. Not to mention the concerns of Ravine Flyer 2 passing over a major highway. Local officials granted Waldameer to build over the highway in April 2004. Then in 2006, the roller coaster opponent relented after a court ruled in Waldameer's favor, but by the time they got approval, they were left without a manufacturer. Originally, CCI was hired to construct Ravine Flyer 2, but after CCI went bankrupt in 2002, they brought in the Gravity Group to construct the coaster. With all things approved, they were able to get Ravine Flyer 2 open for the 2008 season. And of the coasters we mentioned here, this is probably the best one because of the perfected layout and forces, bringing in strong airtime and laterals while also being built into the terrain. Because of Ravine Flyer 2's history, this makes it the coaster that took the longest to open. So that is my ranking of the coasters that took forever to open. Like I said, if there's any coasters missing from this list, leave them down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, which if you watched to the end and means you did, you can help by giving a like. Also, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. It only takes 5 seconds to do, and that motivates me to make more cool content in the future. And finally, watch these 2 videos that popped up on your screen when you're done. This is the Coaster Flood, riding out.